Single dad applied for a janitor job, then the billionaire CEO froze when she saw his name. Part 1. On a cold Monday morning, Ethan Carter stood outside the towering glass headquarters of Hawthorne Global Industries. His 5-year-old daughter, Lily, held tightly onto his hand while carrying a tiny pink backpack that had seen better days. Ethan looked up at the 50-story building and took a slow breath. He had once dreamed of working in places like this, not as a janitor, but as an engineer. Life, however, had rewritten every plan he had ever made. 3 years earlier, his wife Emma had passed away after a long battle with cancer, leaving Ethan to raise Lily alone. Hospital bills had drained every dollar they had saved. Soon afterward, the manufacturing company where Ethan worked shut down unexpectedly, and he lost his job. Since then, he had accepted every kind of work he could find: construction, warehouse shifts, food delivery, landscaping, but nothing lasted long enough to provide stability. Now, after months of unemployment, the only position available at Hawthorne Global was for a night janitor. He wasn't ashamed. Any honest job that could feed his daughter was worth taking. "Daddy," Lily asked softly, "is this where you'll work?" Ethan smiled. "I hope so, sweetheart. I'll pray they say yes." Her innocent words nearly brought tears to his eyes. Inside the magnificent lobby, polished marble floors reflected sparkling chandeliers. Employees in expensive suits hurried through security gates while Ethan quietly approached the reception desk. "I'm here for a janitor interview," he said politely. The receptionist glanced at his worn jacket before handing him an application. "Please fill this out and wait." Ethan sat beside Lily and carefully completed every page. When he reached the line asking for previous employment, he hesitated. Should he list his engineering experience? Most employers immediately assumed he would quit the moment a better opportunity appeared. After a moment of thought, he wrote everything honestly. Honesty was all he had left. Across the building, billionaire CEO Victoria Hawthorne walked briskly through the executive hallway surrounded by assistants. At only 36 years old, Victoria had transformed Hawthorne Global into one of the nation's fastest-growing technology companies. Business magazines admired her intelligence. Competitors feared her determination. Employees respected her fairness. But behind every successful headline was a woman carrying an invisible wound. 20 years earlier, when she was 16, her father had disappeared after being falsely accused of stealing millions from the family company. The scandal destroyed her family. Her father vanished without ever clearing his name. Her mother died believing he had abandoned them. Victoria had spent 2 decades searching for answers. None ever came. She buried herself in work instead. Her assistant hurried toward her. "Ms. Hawthorne, Human Resources wants your signature on today's hiring paperwork." Victoria nodded absent-mindedly. "Bring it to my office." Minutes later, a thick stack of applications landed on her desk. Normally she signed them without looking. Today, however, one folder accidentally slipped open. A name caught her attention. Ethan Carter. Her heart skipped. No, it couldn't be. She stared at the application. Previous occupation: mechanical engineer. Current application: night janitor. She continued reading until one line made her freeze completely. Emergency contact: Lily Carter. Mother: deceased. Father: Ethan Carter. Then she noticed another detail. Reference: Michael Carter. Victoria's hands began shaking. Michael Carter. That name. It belonged to the accountant who had worked beside her father 20 years ago, the only employee who believed her father had been innocent. Michael had disappeared shortly after the scandal. Victoria immediately stood. "Where is this applicant?" "Waiting downstairs," her assistant answered. Victoria didn't hesitate. She rushed toward the elevator. Meanwhile, Ethan was comforting Lily, who had become sleepy while waiting. "You okay?" "I'm hungry," she whispered. He checked his wallet. Only enough money remained for one sandwich after bus fare home. "We'll eat soon." Before he could say another word, several executives suddenly entered the lobby. Employees stepped aside immediately. The room fell silent. Ethan recognized the woman leading them from countless magazine covers. Victoria Hawthorne herself. He lowered his eyes respectfully. There was no reason a billionaire CEO would even notice a janitor applicant. But Victoria stopped directly in front of him. "Ethan Carter." He stood. "Yes, ma'am." She looked into his face. Older. Tired. but unmistakably familiar. You remind me of someone. Ethan smiled politely. I get that sometimes. Your father's name was Michael Carter. His expression changed instantly. Yes. Victoria's breathing became uneven. I've been searching for him for 20 years. Ethan looked stunned. You knew my father. I desperately need to speak with you. Confused whispers spread across the lobby. Executives exchanged puzzled glances. No one had ever seen Victoria Hawthorne interrupt her schedule for a janitor applicant. Ethan hesitated. I'm sorry, Ms. Hawthorne, but my interview. The interview is over. His heart sank. Oh, I'm personally hiring you. He blinked. What? Victoria smiled for the first time that day. But not because you're applying to clean floors. She looked directly into his eyes. I believe your father may hold the key to proving mine was innocent. Ethan felt as though the ground disappeared beneath him. My father died 5 years ago. Victoria's face turned pale. He died. Ethan nodded quietly. But before he passed away, he remembered something. There was one thing he made me promise never to throw away. Victoria leaned forward. What was it? Ethan answered slowly. A locked wooden box. Victoria's eyes widened. Tears filled them instantly. Because 20 years ago, her father had hidden something in an identical wooden box before disappearing forever.